Donnie and Dolly, the team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Blaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox going nuts.
Yep. Oh,
regarding ageism.
Yep.
Much like I went nuts yesterday for hot dogs.
Hot dogs, yeah.
It is, what day is it today? It is Thursday, but we're going with our Friday sponsor.
Yeah.
Today's guest brought to you by Langley Chrysler. It doesn't take much to mess me up. You know why, Ryan? Because I'm older.
Yeah.
Enjoy no-hassle 3-day returns and 30-day exchanges in all used vehicles so you can make sure what you get is just right for you. Don't just love your car, love buying it at langleychrysler.com. As we bring in Farhan Lalji from TSN. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Just at the rink. Just listening to Elias Pettersson. Have a few things to say. He's just walking past right now, and then we've got Bruce Boudreau coming up shortly for what should be a pretty big game tonight.
Anything noteworthy with Elias?
Well, I mean, he's been pretty good. I don't know if you noticed or not, but he's 35 or 20 goals in his last 35 games, and 35 points in his last 26 games, and he's. Is this as good as we've ever seen him play? I mean, I think that's a question. We saw him in his first 2 years and just how dynamic he was, and then some ups and downs with injuries and other things the last couple of years, but. Man, is he good right now.
Yeah, we had that question yesterday, and we were saying the very start of his NHL career and the bubble would compete with this. But no, I was wondering if there was anything noteworthy regarding what he was saying, Farhan.
No, we were trying to talk to him about Bruce and the impact that he's had, and he talked to him about the confidence Bruce showed in him early and the opportunity to be on the penalty kill. But I think, a lot of it he had to ultimately find himself, right? And it wasn't necessarily on his game early on in the year. And there probably was some tough love on the part of Boudreau with less ice time and things of that nature. But I think he acknowledges that maybe I didn't deserve it as much, and now he's getting all of it and feels pretty good about his game.
So you're a coach. What would you tell your players, if anything, in this situation tonight where you're playing the last place team in the National Hockey League and maybe looking ahead to Dallas on Monday?
Yeah, it's a fair question. But I think for the Canucks, I think, at normal times you can use the term trap game. And I just don't know if they're in a position to at all feel like that. Now you're certainly going to have an opponent who maybe doesn't bring the same level of intensity. And that's hard, right? Because now you've got to manufacture it. Whereas if the other team also has some bite in their game, it makes it that much easier to kind of bring that out. But, it becomes easier to play in those games when the pressure's on both teams. But I think when you look at how well they took care of business a week ago in Arizona, and just how fine the margins are right now, I don't think there's going to be much in the way of motivation needed for this one.
Farhan, Pod Colson really stepping up here in the last couple of weeks. Power play goal last game, and that's what you want to see from a ninth overall pick. Get in that top six, stay in there, special teams. How impressed are you with him in the last couple of weeks?
Very, and just he continues to get better and better. And you watch it in game, and for me, with the amount of time I've spent coaching, I just think of everything in terms of process, not in terms of outcome. And I know for young players, at some point there needs to be a bottom line. I think we gauged, Höglander differently this year than we gauged him a year ago, because last year was just all potential and all excitement and all work rate. And then this year we expect him to score a little more. You need a little bit more in the way of a bottom line. And right now with Podkolzin, you see the growth, you see how he's thriving in a new role, an increased role, a different environment, and just his ability to drive the net, his ability to just not be intimidated as a rookie and play in the hard areas of the ice. I've enjoyed watching him. I've just enjoyed seeing his confidence grow over the course of the season, and I think the sky's the limit for this kid.
Want to go over to the CFL. You've been tweeting a lot about the CBA, the Canadian ratio, all that stuff. Talk a little bit about what's going on there.
Well, the two sides had a second round of formal discussions early this week. They went on Monday and Tuesday, and that's the second straight week they've kind of been formally doing this. But the bargaining is a little bit different in with this whole interest-based bargaining concept, and it's created a much more positive environment for their discussions, right? And they'll get back at it both sides next week. But it's going to be three main topics that this is going to come down to. One of them, of course, is going to be money and salary cap. And then the other two topics are, what to do with the ratio. The league calls it roster flexibility. And is there an adjustment that needs to be made? And I think there is, not necessarily a drastic one, but I think you could kind of nibble around the edges and it could help improve the game a little bit. And then the third one is going to be, what they can do for roster retention, things like guaranteed contracts and things of that nature. But, I've been diving into the ratio topic, and you guys both know this. There are some staunch CFL fans that just don't want you to touch their game.
Yeah.
They don't want you to touch the Canadianness of their game.
Yeah.
And when we posed the possibility of 4 downs, people went bananas. But in this topic, the response has been pretty positive and pretty measured, and I'm impressed by that, right? Because people aren't just saying no for the sake of saying no; they're looking at it. And I think the starting Canadians, I think there's good talent in this league, good Canadian talent in this league, but I do think there's a depth issue. And I think for people who say, football has never been as good as it's been before in this country, how many of you have gone and watched a U Sports game? Right, like philosophically, it's easy to say because there's been a few more guys in the NFL, and the top end has certainly gotten better. But as the entire depth and rank and file got better, I'm not sure that it has. And I think if you're a fan, you want to see Canadians in your game, but where do you want to see it? I want to see the starters. I want to see guys touch the football. But as far as 19, 20, 21, those Canadians at the bottom of your roster, they're not what fans come to see. They're not necessarily difference makers. How many of them eventually elevate up into those star players is debatable. So, for me, I think you could nibble around the edges and it could improve the roster. And the veteran American or the naturalized Canadian, I think, is a good way to do that, because those are the guys that we wind up getting comfortable with in our markets. And they start building some name value, whether you're a Solomon Elamimian or a G. Roy Simon or what have you. I think those people resonate with Canadian fans, right?
I agree, Farhan, and maybe one of the reasons why those staunch, in some cases older fans would be okay with the naturalized Canadian rule is that because in reality, it's an old rule. It was around back in the day where if you played a certain amount of years with one team or a certain amount of years in the league, you were denoted a non-import. You had Canadian status, so that would make sense. Whatever it takes to help the identification situation in the CFL. Would you not agree with that? To make it
totally
better? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think both sides agree, right? Now, there's different ways to skin that cat, right? The league wants to improve the overall quality of play, but I think both sides understand we need to find ways to build stars. And a way to do that is to keep them in market, right? And there's not as much movement as people think, but I think the angst of the possibility of movement really affects teams, right? And or really affects fan bases, I should say. So I think if they can both work to that goal, give the players a little more stability, and give fans reason to buy a jersey for a guy that is going to be around a while, I think that's a positive thing.
Saw Baker Mayfield on a podcast down south yesterday with the upside down dog or the dog on his back. Anyway, that was a visual. Farhan, where is he going to end up?
Well, we're going to have to see after the draft, right? Because we've seen a certain amount of musical chairs as it relates to the quarterbacks in this league. But there are still two guys, Baker Mayfield and Jimmy Garoppolo, that were left without a chair, right? Mm-hmm. So there's still teams that need quarterback improvement, right? I mean, whether you're Carolina, whether you're Seattle, and I know that Mayfield said that Seattle was a possibility, but even he was just kind of throwing that out there. And that podcast was taped a couple of weeks ago before it actually got aired. So for me, what happens at the draft? And I'm so petrified of seeing teams get desperate and trade up to get a bunch of these guys in the top 10 in the draft because they're not good enough to go there. If I'm the Seahawks, I should be picking either Matt Corral or Desmond Ridder with the 40th pick, right? Because I've got those 2 second-round picks back-to-back. But I think all these guys are going to get elevated. So, some teams are going to get into that pool and trade picks to move up, and other teams are going to wait and see, okay, well, we didn't get our guy to draft, so now let's circle back on one of these two guys, and I think that's where you'll see it end.
Okay, and quickly, Farhan, you wanted to weigh in on our hot dog conversation from yesterday.
Yeah.
Have I got that right?
Who eats hot dogs?
What?
Go get a Smoky.
Okay. All right.
Go get a Smoky. Don't talk to me about regular hot dogs. Who eats the Oscar Mayer hot dog?
Kids do.
Come on. But Donnie, as you said before I got in the air, you're old.
Yeah.
Rick, you're old. I'm old.
Ease up there, buddy. Ease up with the old. Ease up.
Jalapeno Smokies, cheddar Smokies. When you go down to the food truck and you get a good Smoky, that's what we're talking about, right? With the sautéed onions and and all the grilled stuff that's on there. We don't need mustard and ketchup on our thin bunned Oscar Mayer wiener. That's not how this discussion should happen.
You're a hot dog snob.
Yeah.
Thanks, Farhan.
Very much so.
Thanks, Farhan. Farhan Lalji, TSN.